Hello fellow World of Warcraft players, welcome back to a new video on my channel. Today we're talking about add-ons again because the creator of Deadly Boss mods has spoken out once more in a video that's over 20 minutes long. This is about him saying that Blizzard's interface is actually still crap. More or less. We already had a video about this a few weeks ago where he talked about how many bugs and so on Blizzard's own boss mod, meaning this boss ability timeline, brings with it. And apparently nothing has really changed about that. Sometimes it's actually even gotten worse. We'll take a look at all of that in this video, as well as what he says Blizzard would need to do to make things better. If you don't want to miss any tips, tricks, or news, feel free to leave a like and subscribe, and with that, let's get started. Basically, I can recommend that if you're interested in all of this, watch the full video. It's linked in the video description. You can see here at the beginning he has a really nice list showing the issues tied to each boss. So in the end, this bug here is one that has been there since the very beginning of the add-on. So in other words, anyone using Blizzard's original ability timeline misses every other Umbra collapse on the first boss. At this point, you have to use a boss mod like Bigwigs or DBM so it's displayed correctly. Blizzard's bar alone isn't enough, and that's actually the first point where I can really see where he's coming from when he says, it can't be that people who rely on it are, in the end, more or less left on their own, because this bar doesn't really work. And then point number 2, that even after several months, it still hasn't been fixed. I definitely have to agree with him on that. That's not a good thing here. And you can see it. He also wrote something down here for every boss. For example, he also says that a big problem is, Blizzard sometimes introduces errors into their own interface that cause bugs. The add-on developers then have to fix those so that their stuff works. And yes, all in all, he's criticizing poor quality control here and the bug. And he also says again at this point that without add-on creators like him, Blizzard would sometimes be lost. But in the end, these are the people who fix bugs for free that Blizzard introduces into the game and can't manage to fix even after months. And here too I can understand him to some extent. We just saw the bug with the first boss. In World of Warcraft's Void Spire raid, actually there are apparently several other examples from other bosses where you really can't play well with Blizzard's original timeline bar. We just talked about Imperator, that these soaks are not being displayed. And with Velgor and Azorak, there's apparently also a problem. The frontal is called Dread Breath. This whole thing, in this case here in German, it should be Entsetzlicher Atem. That the timer in each intermission is either 3 to 4 seconds too early or too late. It just varies a bit. Here too, it's a mistake that's been there from the start, which is fixed by add-ons like DBM or Bigwigs. But again, this is a good example where he says, or Blizzard tells people you don't need add-ons to play this game. They add a boss timeline that gives people false information, which ideally causes those people to die. That's why I can understand it, especially since with both bosses, so with Aversion as well as Velgor and Azarak, these are mechanics where if you do them wrong, especially on Mythic, you're dead. Yes. All in all, besides these bosses, it was also about the lack of quality control and the point failure in features. Here, for example, he says that DPS players see tank abilities in their ability timeline. So you actually don't know which abilities are important for you because Blizzard basically spits out everything for you. So he says here that the API theoretically has the ability to display 3 warning levels, and there are options to choose which ones you want to see. But Blizzard completely ignored the whole thing. And yeah, instead they show the players what they think is important. That means the players can't set it for themselves personally. And yeah, that's also something where he says the features of this whole thing aren't really good, especially that a player can't set it themselves. What do I want to see? What do I not want to see? What might be important to me? Because Blizzard tells you what you should find important, and the rest, well, without add-ons, you just have to deal with it at this point. Other than that, he also said something positive. For example, he said at this point that the debuffs were marked as private, and that's a pretty good thing. So he says that in some ways the gameplay in WoW has improved because of these changes. And I think that's definitely a point, yeah, where you can agree with him. Personally, I really like the whole thing, so I feel like it's sometimes more fun to be in dungeons without a weak aura at every corner telling you what to do. Sure, at one point or another, I think, okay, a weak aura would be really helpful here, but overall, you get used to the gameplay, and I think it hasn't turned out as bad as many people feared beforehand. That's why it's a good thing. And yeah, as you can see, there are still quite a few things not going smoothly when it comes to what Blizzard says about the ability timeline. In case you have any questions, I use the add-on Better Ability Timeline to better customize the appearance, and I use big wigs to avoid such errors. Apart from the fact that these boss mod add-ons give even more notifications than Blizzard's own add-ons, so I would say you still have advantages by using such an add-on. But let's see, maybe something will change. What do you think? Feel free to write it in the comments, and with that, thanks for watching, see you in the next video, and take care.